Salutations, everybody. This is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast, and I would like to welcome everybody back to this week's episode of the podcast, where we're going to get right back to the pre-recorded interview with our guest, David Hensley, founder of EVP Mediums and half of the hosting team of the Paranormal Road podcast. So without further ado, let's get back to that interview already in progress.
Sure. Well, again, at the time I was a director at Cedar Point, so I didn't really talk or share about these things with only a few trusted people because I couldn't have people question my sanity. But years later, I get my own restaurant. I have my own business. And then an employee that I hired to manage the restaurant, Randy, who's now on the Paranormal Road, he has a paranormal experience in his home. And at that point, I'm like, wait a minute, I own my own business. Not to mention that I'm old as dirt now, and I don't care what people think about me. So, it's like, cool, let's explore this. So I think getting my first EVP, and I think it was Megan, you and Emily I called first and said, oh, my God, your dad just got his first EVP, and I was so excited. But at Randy's house, I did get my first EVP. It was amazing to actually hear a voice I know darn well wasn't there during the doing the recording, and it kind of snowballed from there. And we eventually formed EVP Mediums, where we would get into paranormal investigations. Now, mind you, the only model we have is what you see on TV.
Yeah.
So we kind of did that, but very, very quickly we broke and started doing our own thing, different than what other people you see on TV. We didn't, dress in black from head to toe and get all goth. And we certainly don't go into investigations and say, "Oh my God, did you hear that?"
Are you saying you do not have a hearse transformed into Ecto 3 and the EVP?
Exactly.
I mean, come on, I'm kind of disappointed in that. I have to admit, that would be fantastic.
No. But we started out as EVP Mediums because in the beginning that's pretty much all I knew. Then we discovered ITC communication and was literally blown away when we started getting full sentences and in some cases paragraphs and intelligent response to us. So over the years we evolved, and that's where we have our EVP Mediums on YouTube. We have about 80 documented videos now. And it is really quite remarkable. And getting my kids involved in the early stages is Adam, and you'll probably remember what I told him about fear. What have I always preached at him about fear?
The only fear is the absence of knowledge. Once you know how to what something is, and once you understand it, you can prepare for it.
Exactly, and that's what I've always said. Fear
correct.
Fear is nothing more than the absence of knowledge. So I wanted them involved. And once Megan had that experience, I then started telling my kids. And then I started sharing my experience because I'm like, I don't want them to be unprepared. I want them to know about these things. They do exist. And literally that's kind of how Paranormal Road eventually began. Last year we decided, let's try Paranormal Road. Let's talk about all things paranormal, because there's people out there that are hurting. There's people out there that have these experiences. They're seeking knowledge and they want to know. And I know now, thank God, there's so many podcasts such as your show that addresses these type of things. And I found myself, I'll go from show to show to show to show on topics because I want to absorb as much, again, information as I can, so I'm not afraid, because it keeps me, again, and like I try to explain to people, I'm not afraid of sharks, but I'm not going to jump in a pool of a shark. So there is a difference. I'm not going to go out there looking for me. I'm not going to go out there looking for the dog man. For some reason, I'm not afraid of ghosts. We've had now 5, what we believe to be 5 demonic cases. I'm not really even afraid of them. I respect them highly as far as their power, and I am concerned about retributions against me through my family. That does concern me. So if we feel a case is demonic, we won't even take it. or once we get to an investigation and we realize we're dealing with something non-human, we quickly back out and refer our clients to a demonologist, simply for the safety of our family.
That sounds like a very smart thing to do.
Very wise.
Now,
yes.
now you mentioned something. So was it the ITC?
Yes.
Okay.
Instrumental trans communication.
Do you want to explain that to our listeners who and Jason, who may not know what that is?
Yeah, EVP. Let me start with EVP. EVP is electronic voice phenomena. It's commonly referred to strictly as simply any type of audio recording. We get incredible EVPs that are often picked up through our audio mic on our video camera. But you can pick anything that records sound, you can get an EVP. Basically, you ask a question, or you don't even have to do that. It's what you call interactive and inactive or passive recording. A passive recording is if, let's say, you're walking around with your digital recorder, but you're talking to your friend about something, but you're holding that digital recorder. You're not even trying to communicate with the spirit, but when you play it back, you will get, they talk to you, but you weren't even talking to them. That would be a passive recording. Interactive, of course, is when you're asking direct questions. So that's EVP. Right. ITC, or instrumental transcommunication, is when you're using computer algorithms, or you're using what they call a spirit box or a ghost box. There's even video ITC, where you will take a video camera, you will then turn it on to record, and you will point it at a screen, like a television screen or the computer screen in which you are filming. So you're creating a loop, sort of like if you're in a barber chair and you see that loop as the barber spins you around to see the back of your head against the two mirrors. All right, so you see that tunnel effect. Well, when you do that with video, you can get ITC, you can pick up faces and voices. And I actually have done that, and I did pick up a very, very incredible face, and you have to go by frame. It's funny because when I showed that face to my mom and my aunt and my sister, all three of us said, "Oh my God, that's Uncle Tom when he was young." And all three of them said that, and I didn't even tell them. I said, "Who does this look like?" That's, I think, the most I said. And it's really interesting because the audio in that said Tom Forrider, and that was his name. So then I played the audio
thought
after
it was,
they saw it.
So you obviously thought it looked like him too, and then you just wanted to have some okay. Now,
right,
now the
validation.
whole video loop thing, is that something you discovered, or is that something somebody else did and you just...
No, I read about it years earlier. That it was it actually was a paranormal or parapsychologist group. I believe they were out of England, and they were the ones that first discovered it by doing a feed through. And I think they discovered it, I want to say, the early 70s.
Why on earth would you even
and at
think?
That time,
why would you think of that? I mean, what? Like, I don't know enough about electronics to even. I mean, why would you think that would be something you could catch? Well, I don't understand.
Well, here's the thing: is the creator of ITC, the Spirit Box, or what in the paranormal community, it's known as the Joe's Box, because the gentleman's name was Joe that created it.
What's the I stand for again in ITC?
What's that?
What's the I stand? Instrumental. Okay.
Instrumental. Yeah. Instrumental.
Transcommunications. Oh, right.
Correct.
Okay.
And the original guy who created the Spirit Box, which at that time was called Joe's Box, he claims that he got the instructions for how to build this through EVPs. So he was claiming that spirits on the other side told him how to do this. Now, interestingly, there's another method of ITC that can bring incredible results, and that's just taking an old-fashioned radio with the spin dial, like we used to have in our cars back in the 60s and 70s, where you, not the digital scan, but you spin the dial through the stations. Mm-hmm. If you take a radio and you sit down and you ask questions, and you spin that through the station where you're getting the noise, mm-hmm. If you do a recording and play it back, you can get full sentences. Somehow, and the belief is that they, many will tell you that with the Ghost Box, Spirit Box, One belief is that when you're scanning through the station, they're picking snippets of words. Like a DJ may say welcome. He may be saying welcome to KFI out of Detroit, but they will hear welcome. And then another person is saying Jimmy Mac, songs. It'll say welcome, Jimmy. But it'll take those two pieces. That's one theory, is that by scanning through, the spirit is able to select each of those words accordingly. I don't really subscribe to that by doing this as much as what we have. It seems like when you're doing these in that method, scanning the radio bands, it's almost like the radio bands themselves, you're acting as a carrier wave, and those frequencies are bouncing enough that the energy of what they're trying to say, it's able to ride like a carrier wave on those frequencies. I know I'm getting kind of way out there and technical. But when it comes to software programs, there's many out there for your iPhones, and that's what we use. There's many out there, and these software developers, they don't even know how it works as far as how the spirits use it. They know how they designed it, and these software algorithms use algorithmic random bits and pieces of phonics that just randomly shoot out there. And somehow they're able to use those phonics to form distinct and intelligent answers when asking questions.
Now, you guys have been doing this for quite a while, going out and doing investigations and getting EVPs and everything. Would you, knowing what you know now, would you encourage somebody to download some of these apps or get the dial radio and start asking questions? I mean, seriously, what are they? What are these? What are you inviting in to?
Here's that's said a lot. That would be, for me to say do not do that, would be like the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody has their different reasons for this. Mine, I was compelled to do this not because of the Hat Man, not because of that, because of the loss of my father at 10 and then the loss of my grandparents. It messed me up. I needed to know. I needed to know that life goes on deep down inside. I needed to know that. And so when I discovered actually getting a communication with spirits, I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would ever communicate with my loved ones that passed on. I just thought, for me, it was fantastic because it's proof that something's going on. It's proof that our existence, our energy survives death. And for me, that was so overwhelmingly, it charged me. It's like an adrenaline. I have to know more. I have to keep doing this. And I think if you're doing it for the right reasons, I think that if you're solid and grounded in your faith, I don't think it's a problem. It has not been for me. I think, though, if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, and I think if people do it like they see on TV, there's one particular show, and I don't even have to say its name, but you get it. If you're out there like, some kind of college frat boy and say, you want a piece of me, dude? And you go out there with that mentality, you're asking for trouble, because it's a game, and you're not respecting the spirits. You're going out there, more or less, let's go to Mansfield Prison. And you're doing all this kind of stuff. That's not respectful. That's why we typically will not go to Mansfield. We will not go to insane asylums. We already know that ghosts exist. What would be the point? That would be badgering them. The amount of paranormal researchers that go in those places on a day-by-day, weekly basis, over and over and over, these spirits are literally going through their own personal hell. To have to listen to the same dumb questions every night.
That's a good way to look at it right there. Yep. That's a good way to look at it. I mean, and so one leads the guys that you're speaking of that challenge the challenge. Funny, we just had another episode where we talked about those guys. And it makes you wonder if they really are doing anything anyway. Because if, you know what I'm saying? Are they really contacting anybody? Are they getting any kind of evidence? Maybe they don't even experience anything, and that's...
Well, Megan and I can tell you from firsthand experience, because the boys were too young at that point. Megan, me, and Emily, as well as Gary, who's no longer with us. He was our spiritual advisor. He's no longer on our team.
I was going to say, you said no longer with us. I thought, is he coming through the spirit box?
No, he's no longer with our team.
Okay.
But him and his son Tucker and Randy, we actually did a pilot episode for Lifetime Television Network called American Murder House, and we had signed a 5-year contract. They flew us up to Staten Island, New York. So yeah, we were going to join the ghost hunters, the ghost adventurers, the dead files, and on and on and on. And after that experience, that was, and I'm sure Megan will concur, 3 days of pure hell. But we learned a lot. But as far as, unfortunately, there were bad lessons. And reality TV is anything but real. It's anything but reality. It's all about, as we were told by a producer when I was ordered to say something, and I said, I absolutely will not say that. And I was strictly reminded that I'm under contract and held to legal obligations. And I said, then sue me, because I am not saying that. We quickly realized that reality TV is anything but real.
It's sculpted
staged.
for rating. Yeah, exactly. It's staged.
Yeah. So we muddled through that. And if you ever get a chance to see the show, you will see that we are less than enthusiastic. So we wanted to make certain that there was nothing beyond that pilot. So.
Oh yeah.
So, but back to what I was asking, can somebody mess around and? Now I don't want to talk too much about demonic.
Invite them in.
But are demonic spirits, entities or whatever, just out hanging around looking for somebody to open the door for them to let them in? Or do they...
Yes.
So they're just like,
yes.
Let's, smoking a cigarette on the sidewalk going, maybe they'll open the door? Or do they purposely target people?
Here's, again, this is just from... We tell people this in our lectures. Anybody who claims to be an expert on this, if they make that claim, be very cautious, because there is no such thing. This whole field is too big for anybody to wrap their heads around. All I can tell you is based upon 80-plus investigations as far as video, 100 in total non-video, with non-video included. We look for patterns, and when we give lectures, I'm very careful to say evidence suggests. Okay. Based on that and what I just said, it appears with many of our clients, and we look at their hauntings, and specifically the 5, now maybe 6 cases that we believe were non-human in nature. There were some common threads. All of these locations had some personal trauma, some types. In some cases, it may have been drug usage. Other cases, it may have been sex addiction. There does seem to be threads within our client base of this where, if anything, they're providing an open door for this entity to come in. So if there is a weakness, you're giving it an opportunity to come in. And now in the paranormal field, we've talked about heroin usage. And so when it comes down to drug addiction, the question is, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Does the demonic entity cause people to use heroin, therefore bringing about the destruction of man, or does the use of heroin bring in the demonic entity? So it's one of those riddles. But there does seem to be a correlation between actions we take and our weakness as far as our faith that allow these to come in. And I don't mean, okay, I go to church every day, so therefore I'm high in faith. I'm talking about the real faith, the deep connection to God, the deep connection to the belief of love. When you have that kind of faith, it is very difficult for these entities to manifest within your life.
Yes, I agree with that. I have a question back on the ITCs. I had read something one time about white noise being used as a carrier wave for...
Yes.
So have you used anything, or that's basically a spirit box though, correct?
No, white noise would be like when you're doing EVPs, Another way is to turn on your faucet in the kitchen, let it come to a real thin dribble, and the sound of the water hitting the sink basin, especially if you have a stainless steel sink and it reverberates.
Yes.
And then I wouldn't stand right there and record, but go into the next room, but where you could still hear the dribbling, and then turn on your recorder. Contrary to popular belief, silence is not the best way to get EVPs. In fact, some of the most incredible EVPs we've gotten by just turning on the recorder and going about our business. Whether you're making pizza, turn on the recorder, set it on your kitchen counter, and talk to your family. Be aware of what you're saying, be aware of your conversations, and then stop and hit play. And then you'll hear voices that damn well none of you said or was not there. And I'm not saying it happens all the time, but in one particular case of that, what we call passive, at the time with Randy's haunting in his house, it was almost like every weekend people were coming to witness this firsthand. And so everybody was showing up at Randy's. Randy had to have wine to calm his nerves, simply because at that time it was new to him. So it was new to all of us, but people would tell, and I want to experience it. They'd come over, and they'd all leave just mind blown. But one time we were in the kitchen, and it was two of Randy's friends that were there, and we were having wine and just standing around talking. And so I turned on my phone and hit the record and set it off to the side. We're talking. When I played it back, Randy was telling them about his patio. His patio's red brick. And he was telling his friends that the patio out back was actually the brick that they tore up on Broadway in Lorraine. And they allowed residents to take the bricks if they needed them. So he was saying the whole patio was built out of these bricks. And just out of nowhere, listening back to this recorder, the only way I can liken it is to like Betty Davis voice, or a heavy smoking woman. This voice comes out and says, "We won't sit out there." I mean, and it sounds like again, heavy smoking woman says, and it says, "We won't sit out there." And see, we look, and my whole kids are the same way when they listen to EVP ITC. It's not just listen, but listen to the meaning. And the fact that they said, "We won't sit out there," means they can if they choose. It's not like you see the movie, what is that movie, Beetlejuice, where they were confined to the house, and every time they opened it up, this sand demon came after them. The words that they said is, "We won't sit out there," which means they choose not to.
Yeah, it was
so
their
every
choice,
time we do an investigation, we kind of listen to what they're saying to try to determine what's the hidden meaning in there.
Which you saying that leads me to think something else. So number one, then there's obviously there's more than one spirit or entity at Randy's house.
Yes, they're everywhere. We've never gone to one place where there's only one entity.
Okay, so
they're everywhere.
So
in fact, it's kind of rare to go to any place that has just two. There's a lot.
Okay, so do these guys or spirits, are they working together, or is it like in the real world where I'm going to do my own thing and you go do your own thing and you leave me alone, and I'll how do they form a team to scare everybody?
From what well, in some cases, yes. From what we have, again, hypothesized based upon sheer volume of our investigations, we've been at one particular location where some spirits seem to be from the 1920s, and they were completely oblivious of the spirits from the 1960s that were talking to us.
Wow!
So it seems like
that's amazing.
It depends on what era that they were trapped here, or they didn't go into the light. We've also been, we did do a couple of commercial properties. We did the Ghost of Lorraine Palace. We did an investigation at the Lorraine Lighthouse. I was shocked to find that there actually was a child at the lighthouse, because the lighthouse you have to take a boat to get out to. But we got a child spirit out there, and we got a woman spirit out there. Now, the woman kind of shocked me too, but it didn't later when I found out the history that prostitutes used to be boated out there in the middle of the night under secrecy for the lighthouse people. So that didn't surprise me once learning that history of the lighthouse.
Okay.
So,
is that the red? Is that the red lighthouse?
Yeah, the red light.
That's terrible.
But,
I'm really on this morning, though. I'm just going to let you know.
But yeah, it's fascinating what you do learn. Again, you can only put the patterns and the pieces together. And what is amazing is when we actually do an investigation, we get stuff that makes absolutely no sense to us. We transcribe it, we present to the clients, and then we find out that it's true, or the client knows it's true, or they do research and find out something's true. That's mind-blowing. We had a case, just very briefly, we had a case of a client that called. I at first thought she was kind of, it's with my inside voice, okay, she's kind of nuts, because she was talking about seeing a ghost bug or beetle flying in front of her eyes when she was watching TV. And she said it's transparent, but it's a bug. And I kind of like, okay. So we went and did the investigation. During the ITC transcribe, I got very clearly several times a EVP that said the doodle bug. And it sounded like at one point there was a train whistle, but it said the doodle bug. So on a whim, because I got the train whistle, I looked up doodle bug, and I just put in doodle bug. And I was blown away to find out that one of the most famous train wrecks was en route from Akron to Cleveland, called the doodle bug. Oh. And I'm like, could this be a connection? Well, only to find out through research, the engineer, now this was not even in Akron or Cleveland. The engineer actually lived across the street from our client.
Oh, my
so
God.
That is not a coincidence. And now sits a Wendy's. But at the time, with plotting the land and going to the courthouse and getting records, the engineer of the doodle bug, who survived, he jumped, but his life was destroyed because everybody accused him of being drunk, and they were not. It was the carbon monoxide fumes, so they didn't make the cutoff. And it was a head-on collision. Many people died, but their lives were never the same. And he ended up dying very unhappy. But he lived directly across from our clients. And, there's no doubt in my mind that this entity was trying to communicate to our client who he was by taking the form and the shape of a bug that flew in front of her eyes. And then after the communication and getting the name doodle bug in, making connecting dots, we did a prayer crossover and sent them into the light. To this day, our client, we become wonderful friends with them. They've had no further experience in their home.
Do you know how immediately frightened I was when you started talking about a ghost bug? Can you imagine every bug that met a tragic end? If they became a God, we'd just give up.
They would outweigh humanity.
We'd give up. We'd just give up. Yeah. So listening to some of the episodes of your podcast, Randy is a skeptic then when it comes to the cryptid side. But he obviously is not a skeptic when it came. So he was experiencing this stuff in his house, so I take it he probably was a complete skeptic, period, until he started experiencing stuff in his house, and then
right. He kind of when it came to ghosts, he kind of dismissed it. He thought, okay, that's my imagination. Like all of us do, we rationalize stuff. So he didn't even know he was a medium. He had no clue that he was psychic medium until it kicked into high gear. After we formed EVP Mediums, he actually became a full-blown medium, and we all thought we were going to have him committed because he didn't know how to handle this sudden gift per se. But then looking back on it with his sister, he had this ability as a child. He blocked it out. He just didn't realize what it was then. But again, he's not a skeptic to mediumship because he's experienced it firsthand. He's not a skeptic to ghosts. He's experienced them and demonic activity. While he's skeptical and was skeptical of the Bigfoot until we started doing Paranormal Road. And then we went to a lot of these conventions and meeting people and even talking to the judge. He in his words, says, I keep that skeptical side only to keep my sanity because it scares the shit out of me. So there's a side that he just doesn't want to face.
After talking to the judge, the only thing I'd be skeptical of is the judicial system. It wouldn't be the it'd be the just. Yeah. But so before I get to segue into the next part, which is really I can't I want to hear this story. When it comes to like the ghost investigate, the spirit investigations, I think the holy grail of capturing proof is like a picture or a video. I think there's so much out there audio. What kind of evidence do you guys, or do you even attempt to get much photographic?
We
or video
do not.
evidence?
We do not actively attempt to get it, simply because our main goal is to help our client and to help that spirit. So if we can get their story, try to understand why they're there, then we can send them along their way. So for us, our main purpose is to communicate, because that communication is essential to helping them heal and to helping them go home to God. So we've never been big on visual as far as, that's our main goal, let's set up cameras and capture it. However, that being said, we did set up static cams at Powerhouse Gym in Elyria, and we did capture like a bottom half of an apparition walking on stairs. We captured, we're not big on the orbs. 99.9% of orbs are nothing more than fruit flies, dust, moisture. However, based on how they perform under video, if they make sudden turns, drop, change in size, we then have to kind of consider them. They may be paranormal in nature. So we did capture some suspicious orbs at the gym. But when it comes to the holy grail of apparitions, that would have been the Pioneer Mill in Tiffin, Ohio.
Okay.
When we were filming Randy and Joyce doing a ITC session in the main dining room. My cousin stepped in as to help out with camera. He never operated before, and I remember when I was reviewing the footage, because I wasn't in any of it. Charles actually was involved in this one. But I was not filming any of it, and I wasn't even in the room. But when I'm actually loaded it to analyze it at home, this is days later, and I remember saying, "Oh man, Carl," because we were filming in daylight or in just the light of the dining room. It was night, but the light of the dining room was on, and like everything was washed out green. And I remember thinking, Carl, you should have taken it out of night mode. That was, we didn't need it. We weren't going in dark mode. We were filming with the lights on. So there's a green tint to this particular scene. But as I'm listening, I'm just listening for transcribe. I see something move, and I'm like, what the heck? And I look up in the background, I see like the shadow dart. So I back it up, and I'm watching this shadow. I'm like, I wonder if they left the windows open in the dining room, because again, I wasn't in that session. And then I see a shape take form, and it is a man, dark shadow, like a rounded head. He wasn't wearing a hat, thank God. But he peers out. He peers out of a beam, like a support beam. He leans out of it, and you literally can see him turn and walk away. And within seconds later, a transparent white wisp, smoky, maybe about the size of the child, steps into frame along the rail of the riser of the dining room, hangs out for almost a full 30 seconds, and then steps out of frame. It was, and it still is to this day, the best visual evidence we've ever caught, and we caught it by accident. And honestly, now I have to thank my cousin Carl, because I think if he would have not had that camera in IR mode, infrared mode, I'm not sure we would have caught it. But
wow.
And Charles can attest.
And having dined,
nobody walking in the risers.
And having dined at the Pioneer Mill a couple times myself, I can see how that. I mean, that's kind of a cozy, like play. Oh, geez.
Yeah. Well, you really want to meet someone fantastic and hear a lot of stories. Next time you're dining there, ask for Lori, the manager there. Sure, really fill you in on some of the incredible stuff that goes on there.
Well, I had never heard that about the Pioneer Mill. I had never heard.
Oh, yeah, it's highly, highly active.
And see, I think the difference is, though, is you guys know you're not out trying to prove that spirits and stuff exist. You guys know it. So you're just out there. Your whole purpose is to go and help people, not to exploit people, and hope that they have a haunting.
We founded ourselves on three principles: help our clients, help the spirit. That's equally as important. And three, educate the public. Again, knowledge helps everybody. It could help comfort someone who just lost their father. It could help comfort someone who got news that they're terminally ill. If they realize that this is not the end. There is more to life ever after. I know just tell us, but being told something and witnessing or seeing something are two different matters. So that's why our third mission of educating the public is so important to us.
Now,
but yeah, we're not out there to do the ooh and ah factor.
Now, you mentioned to start with that one of the driving forces for you was for proof because of the
right.
Your dad and your grandparents and stuff. So, were you able to ever get any confirmation?
Oh yeah,
from them? And
that's the bizarre thing is I wasn't looking for it. I never even thought it possible. This was in the early stages. When I owned my restaurant then, and it was slow in the afternoon, and every time I was again so enthralled with doing EVPs, I was recording them hundreds a day. Any chance I got, I was turning it on passive, going back listening. But so I stepped out for a smoke break. I stepped out behind the service area, so there's no one around, and I pay attention to my surroundings when I'm doing recordings. But I sat on the bench and I hit the record. I go back in, looked on the cameras to my restaurant. I'm like, oh, great, we got a crowd coming in. So I went straight to the sandwich board, and I got back to it a little bit later, put it on my computer. And so I'm listening, and I hear this da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and it just like that. I'm like, what the hell? I've never heard humming, and nobody was humming out there. And then I saw on the camera that I had more customers, and I needed to go out and help my staff, so I did. Got back, and I thought, let me run that through Audacity, throw in a couple of filters. And then it became, be proud of yourself, my David. The only person ever to call me my David was my grandmother. And when I heard that, I busted out crying because I knew it was her. So I stuck my head out to the floor at that point, and I said, I'm leaving for the day, so-and-so, you're in charge. And I left, and I got in my car, and I went straight to the cemetery. And I got out of my car, turned on the recorder, walked up to the tombstone where my grandparents were, and I'm just bawling like a baby. And I'm rubbing their tombstone and crying. And so I then pull myself together, and I leave, and I go back home with my mom and aunt, and I put it on the computer. And wow. First of all, I played for them what I picked up at the store, and both my mom and aunt said, oh, my God, that's Mom. And I said, yeah, it's Grandma. And they were just dumbfounded. And I said, no, I just went to the cemetery before coming home. I said, I want to put this on and analyze it. You hear me get out of my car, again, because I passive, I just turn on the recorder. As I'm walking across the gravel to their tombstones, you hear a female voice say, I told you he'd come, Daddy. My grandmother always called my grandfather Daddy. So also in that recording, you hear me crying over the gravestones, and I get yelled at. I get, Dave Hensley, your grandma isn't in the grave right there. And what she was telling me, stop crying. I'm right here. I'm not, what you're crying is the body. It's not me. Oh. So that did nothing but fuel me even more. And then went back to the cemetery, went to my father's grave, and again, he died when I was 10, and the recording I got there was, and again, full sentences, I don't know why you don't believe, because I was still doubting this. I was thinking demonic, something's not right. I won't say something's not right, it was too overwhelming. But he says, I don't know why you don't believe. Let's do this together, shall we, son? And then he says, think Ohio Turnpike. That's where my dad was killed.
Holy moly.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That puts shivers there going down your spine right there, that story.
Oh, boy.
But for me, I found it beautiful. For me,
it
changed everything about me, and it fueled me 100 times fold to pursue what I do. Because if I could bring that kind of closure, if I could bring that help just to one family, then all the ridicule and the laughter and the jabbing from my brother or, people who knew me then as Mr., uptight professional guy, to what the hell's gone wrong with Dave? I don't care. Plus, I'm old now, so I don't care. My poor kids, they had to deal with this probably, ribbing from their friends.
Oh boy! Well, I'm going to tell you that's one reason why I will not go to my father's grave, and because he'd yell at me about something, and it wouldn't be as nice. It wouldn't be as nice and loving. It's like.
Now you may be surprised.
No, I don't think I would be. And if the judge was here, he could confirm that statement that I don't think my dad would be nearly as loving because I'm not sure which side he's on. to be honest with you, but I hope he didn't hear that. So that leads me to the okay. So you told me a story the other night that really piqued my interest about some stuff going on at a campground that you guys go to.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear that story. I think our listeners would love to hear that too.
Oh yeah.
Well, see, this is one of the things that I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of the secret to what you think about, you bring about. Because a lot of people in paranormal research who had experience will tell you the more curiosity they have towards the subject matter, the more things happen to them. So it's like, why do some people have so many experiences and some don't? But so anyway, we started Paranormal Road last year, got into the cryptids, had a couple of really great shows on Bigfoot. And then we're out at the campground last summer during our break, because we don't record Paranormal Road in the summer months. But so it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. There's about 8 adults. We're all sitting around, talking about kids and children. Sorry, Megan, Charles, and Adam. We were talking about our kids. But out of nowhere, out of the wood line comes this god-awful, horrific scream. And it's very difficult to describe it. It was deep, but yet it sounded like a woman being murdered. It was unbelievable. And it was so unbelievably terrifying loud from the woods that one of the women that were there at the campsite, she looked at me and her eyes got big and she said, "What the was that?" And everybody, you could have heard a pin drop. And one of the guys who's a trucker, and he's a nose and nonsense guy, he said, "Look at the hairs on my arm." And another guy there, he's an avid hunter, he said, "I've hunted all my life." He said, "That is nothing. I don't know what that could be." So the next morning, I'm searching, I'm like, out of curiosity, Bigfoot sounds. And I found it. I found exactly what all of us heard. So I sent it to all the adults, audio file texting. Then went in the camper and played it for Randy. And I said, "Randy, listen to this." And he was doing dishes at the time or something. And he spun his head and he looked at me and his eyes got big. He goes, "Where'd you find that?" "That's it." Then the next morning, a woman who was not with us the night before, she was walking her dogs. I said, "Hey, Sue." And she goes, "Yeah." And I said, "You got a minute?" And she came over and I said, "Did you hear something strange last night around 2:30? She looked dead at me, never hesitated. She said, "Oh, you mean the screaming?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Yeah, I hear it all the time." She's the only one that lived there Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday. She's there all the time. She's not a weekender. And she goes, "I hear it all the time." She says, "I won't walk my dogs at night anymore." She said, "It started about a month ago." And I said, "Wow." And I said, "I found it on the internet." She goes, "Really?" I said, "I found a file. Listen." So I played it for her. She goes, "Yep, that's it." She says, "It's not as loud as it is here, but that's it." And I said, "You want to know what it is?" And she goes, "What?" And then I showed her the article. It's the 1973 Polyop, Washington Bigfoot Scream. So it's out on the internet. Anybody can look it up. But I sent it to all of the adults that were there without telling them what it was. And they said, "That's it. Oh, my God, that's it. What is it?" Then I sent them the link to the article, and it blew their minds. And then, so I'm listening for it every night. Didn't hear it for weeks and weeks and weeks. Never heard the scream again. But it was in September. I got out on a Thursday night, so I was only one of like 4 people that were out there. And it was a light drizzle, so I'm sitting underneath the canopy on the furniture and having a glass of wine, just relaxing. And there was a thunderstorm, so I'm kind of watching the, not expecting the Hat Man, but there's a thunderstorm off to the south. Yeah, I'm no longer afraid of thunderstorms. I love them now, but So I'm watching the thunder or lightning to the south, and I hear this crack come from the tree line, and I'm like, no. I'm thinking to myself, there's no way. And I'm like, come on, this is just too unbelievable that we have all this Bigfoot stuff on the show. We hear a scream earlier, and now a tree knock. So again, all you can hear is the rain on the canopy. I actually pull out my phone, and I recorded it and captured it. And again, shortly, I think it's like 30 seconds into the recording, you hear this whack. And again, it's coming out of the wood lines, tree lines. There's no way it's people in there because that's a protective reserve. There's no camping allowed there. It's part of a park property. There's no hunting allowed in there. And then to find out that others in the campground have heard that cracking noise. And one of the farmers that lives on that same strip, he actually has horses. He's not a farmer. But he says he won't take his horses back there. And in his words, he didn't tell us this. Someone else at the campground told us. He said, I won't ride back there, he said, anymore. He said, there's a Bigfoot in those woods. And he wouldn't say why he said that. So you have a local person that lives there that says that. And then interesting, a person, the owner of the campground, she manages the campground, but she's there all the time. And it was kind of a big joke to us that at the campground that the weird paranormal Bigfoot guys are there on the corner, and I'm losing track here. Anyway, so she would say things to us like, "Oh, don't tell me that! Don't tell me that!" She put her hands up on her ears, go la 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 la. It scares me, but it's not real. She laughed. It's not real. It's not real. The Bigfoot doesn't. But then it's ironic. She wouldn't go down there and mow in the tent area because that's on the woodline area. She won't go down there and mow by herself. So, and anyway, she was a big non-believer in all of this. But here to find out, in January, we get a call from somebody at the campground says, "You're not going to believe this. Deb is driving through Kipton, and her granddaughter says, 'Grandma, what's that?' And they look, and there is about an 8-foot-tall, hairy creature that steps across the bike path. And Deb actually startled her so much that she spun the car down the side street trying to catch up to find it and look, but they didn't see it again. And I'm like, figures, somebody who doesn't even believe in it, see it.
Well, what did I say? What did I say a little bit earlier about the people that don't have open minds sometimes get the
yeah.
Oh
yeah, and Tipton actually is 1 mile from our campground, so I'm 100% convinced that Sasquatch or Bigfoot are in that area. Now, whether they migrate there seasonally, if they're always there, I don't know. Part of me says they're always there because our experience took place in the summer. Her sighting takes place in January, so they must dwell in that area year-round.
So when then is the first live podcast from the campground this summer going to take place as somebody goes out and investigates the woods and reports back?
Actually, that just may happen. We have an investigator on Paranormal Road, Amy Boo. She's a professional investigator. Bigfoot, she's been on several shows. She's really incredible. We just love her to death. She's bringing out a group of Bigfoot field researchers to camp out at the campground this summer, and they're talking about doing night investigations. So we actually may stream that live.
That would be...
I won't go. Well, I may go. Let me take that back. I'll go if there's enough of them. I'll go. There's no way in hell Randy will go. He'll stay up around the fire with a bottle of wine. But
well, I will.
In his words, he has to stay behind to help identify the bodies the next morning.
Somebody needs to tell the story, right?
Yeah.
Well, I will offer up Jerry from our group to go along because he swears to us that if he comes across the Bigfoot, he's going to try to tackle it. Now, that
right.
So I think he should go with you because I think you have enough wits about you that if you see one and you know you're going to whip out the camera, you're going to get it on video of the first fatality on camera.
Well, wait a minute. I have one for you. Shane.
Yeah.
You have a camper. I'll tell you the date, and you can come and join us and do a joint live podcast with From the Shadows.
Hey, look, I know the guys in the group would love to do that.
That would be outstanding.
As long as they know how to get the camper up there and park it. Because I'm not. Because I'm going to do it remotely. Yeah. I'm not going to sit up there.
I'll let you know the date. We're at the plan on doing it because that could be really cool.
That would be fantastic. But well, I'm going to tell you what. We'll wrap up here. We've been talking forever. But I want to encourage all of our listeners, go check out David on Paranormal Road, and Randy too. I guess Randy's, he does a good job too. But go check out the podcast Paranormal Road. You want to tell everybody where they can hear you guys at, and then if somebody is interested in talking to you about maybe doing an investigation, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah. As far as Paranormal Road, you can find us on YouTube under EVP Mediums channel. So you have to go to EVP Mediums channel on YouTube, and we just started posting Paranormal Road audio format on YouTube. You can also pick us up on podcast, iTunes, Apple, Podbean, and now Google Play. So those are the 3 avenues in which we're on. We're also, you can hear it live, aired, not live, but it airs on Odyssey One Internet Radio Tuesday night at 8 p.m. and iHeartRadio. And as far as our video concerning the paranormal research that we put together, you can view our investigations by going to evpmediums.com. And there's a link that takes you directly to the YouTube channel that has them posted. And also by going to evpmediums.com, there is a contact form that if they are looking for a paranormal investigation, they need some help, they can get in touch with us by filling out that form, and we do call them back within 48 hours.
Well, that's so. I do want to thank Adam and Charles and Megan for joining us today. You guys are a brave bunch for not only making it through what you've experienced, but I think Charles knowing that it was coming because everybody else had the experience. You guys, my hat's off to you. And I do think if you want to go to the...
You had to say hat, didn't you?
Oh, jeez. I'd like to say that I didn't plan that bad. But I do think the whole if we buy you a bus, Partridge Family style, and you guys could become the, show up for investigations and stuff and that'd be fabulous. I don't know if any of you can carry...
Yeah, the Paranormal Partridge Family.
Yeah. I don't know if any of you can carry a tune or not, but that would be fantastic. But no, it was awesome to get to talk to you. And, I think we can let everybody know that in a couple weeks, I'm going to be a guest on your podcast. So
2 weeks from now.
I'm very excited about that.
Make us proud, Shane.
Make you guys proud.
Make us proud.
After all the disappointment that oh, jeez. So, thanks again, David. Thanks again, Adam, Charles,
Absolutely.
Megan. Everybody,
no problem.
Everybody go
Absolutely.
out.
Thank you.
Yep. Check out the Paranormal Road, and don't take a wrong turn on the Paranormal Road because you never know.
Stay on the beaten path.
And do not pick up the Hat Man if he's hitchhiking on the Paranormal Road.
Exactly.
So, all right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care now.
All right, thank you very much.
Right,
Bye-bye.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, a final word. Please visit us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/From the Shadows Podcast, and on our Instagram page at instagram.com/From the Shadows Podcast. You can visit our webpage at FromTheShadowsPodcast.GoDaddySites.com, or contribute to our Facebook discussion page called After the Shadows, and tweet us on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/podcast_from. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.